Invite our last presenter in this Egyptology session, Stefan Münger, who will present the image of the Pharaoh in Judahite and Israelite society according to the Glyptic evidence.
I have to plug my computer first, so it will take a second. Can you hear me? Is it on? No? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Is it better now? Good. So we start. The image of the Pharaoh. The large amount of stamp seal amulets unearthed in Iron Age context in Cis and Transjordan is among the primary sources for the study of the political and religious history of ancient Israel, Judah, as these tiny artifacts offer direct and relatively unblurred access to the past society's belief systems and their participation in the cultural exchange with the neighboring civilizations. In what follows, I will try to present a few selected sidelights on the passive and active reception of Egyptian royal imagery by the local population of the southern Levant during the first half of the first millennium BCE. Passive reception means, in this context, the acceptance and use of foreign symbolic elements on imported goods. Active reception, on the other hand, stands for the reproduction of foreign symbols and possibly their amalgamation with local traditions by the vernacular seal cutters producing for the domestic market. The latter case, however, is difficult to extrapolate due to the, in most cases, difficult differentiation between Egyptian prototypes and their Levantine imitations. As indicated by 2 Samuel 7:9, the king's name was, to a certain degree, part of the royal ideology in Israel and Judah, being at the same time substitute of the anthropomorphic image of the king and the ruler's imminent manifestation. The appearance of contemporary royal names on imported and locally produced stamp seal amulets can thus be viewed as an indicator for the attitude of the local population towards foreign potentates. On this background, the meager number of stamp seal amulets with the name of a contemporary pharaoh tells its own tale. While under the Egyptian hegemony, royal scarabs and amulets bearing pharaonic symbols, including the names of contemporary rulers, were ubiquitous during the Late Bronze Age, their number drops almost to null after the Egyptian withdrawal sometimes after Ramses III or Ramses IV. The subsequent temporarily limited Egyptian presence, though certainly orchestrated with royal propaganda, left almost no direct trace in the Glyptic record of the Southern Levant, although the impact on the material culture is otherwise feasible. One of the problems, though not uniquely related to the Third Intermediate Period only, is that in quite a few cases the royal names on the plinth of the stamp seal amulets are ambivalent and fit up to 16 kings. They, therefore, cannot count towards identifiable and clearly attributable stamp seal amulets. You have here a few examples. Of course, it is a selection. Only a handful of stamp seal amulets have base engravings with sufficiently secured and commonly accepted readings of a name of an Egyptian rural I cannot say it, king. Sometimes during the first part of the first millennium BC. Apart from one reference to Psammetichus I, founder of the 26th, which is the Scythe dynasty, and his next but one successor, Psammetichus II, the kings attested within the Glyptic material are the following. You see here the, of course, well-known and important pharaoh of the 21st dynasty, Siamun, who ruled in the second quarter of the 10th century BC. He's mentioned on a scarab found in unknown context at Tel el-Farah south, with a variant of his throne name, which is Nature Cheperre Setepedre, with the epitheton Nature Nefu, meaning perfect God. This reading is commonly accepted. As suggested by Bertrand Jäger, there could be another reference to Siamun originating from Gezer, the large image, unfortunately not found in a clear context. It is a bifacial rectangular piece engraved on both sides that shows on one side Menchepere and to the lower right, possibly a graphic variant of Sa Nature, Son of God. The third reference comes from Der Allah and is again surface found. It features on its base the hieroglyphic sequence Chepere with the epitheton Setep en Imen, chosen by Amun. Assuming the full formula would be Netcheri Chepere, one could read the throne name of Siamun, but the alternative of reading Menchepere is of course also valid. The fourth and fifth references come from Megiddo and Dor, but only the item from Dor is displayed in the lower right-hand side. The scarabs feature the king's birth name on their basis. While the item from Megiddo comes from a problematic find context, it is an intrusion in an earlier layer. The item from Tel Dor was found in an excellent and safe context in phase 7a, which is radiometrically dated to post-900 BC. The reading of the slightly differing base engravings of the two scarabs as Sa-Imen, so Siamun, which I suggested a few years ago, is not yet commonly accepted, although it occurs in this form in various Egyptian documents of the time. The second and last pharaonic name is the one of Sheshonq I, founder of the 22nd Libyan dynasty, who campaigned Palestine towards the beginning of the first quarter of the 10th century BC. Sheshonq, biblical Shishak, was the first Egyptian king after the Ramessides who was strong enough to pursue an active foreign policy by clearing the trade routes to Phoenicia and Cyprus and the gateways to the copper resources located in the Jordan Rift Valley. This is corroborated by the famous stele from Megiddo, the other inscriptional proof for Siamun in the southern Levant that was found in tertiary context by the Chicago expedition at Megiddo, and by Glyptic evidence now from the Fainan copper mining region in the Arabah. Key witness is a scarab found on the surface, again on the surface, unfortunately, at Khibat Hamra Iftan in Wadi Fidan. It is Tom Levy's expedition who found this exceptional find. It bears the hieroglyphic sequence Chetchepere Setep en Imen Re, bright is the manifestation of Re, chosen of Amun Re. That sequence corresponds to the throne name of Sheshonq I. In sum, although there was a constant flow of miniature art from Egypt to the Levant in the period under discussion, scarabs and other seal amulets transporting royal propaganda in the most direct way, which is bearing the pharaonic name, were not among the goods that normally reached Cis and Transjordan in considerable quantities. Merely the two pharaohs, Siamun and Sheshonq, are attested. If one would include other important inscriptional material, only one alabaster vessel found from Samaria bearing the name of Osorkon II could be cited. Therefore, the database must be expanded in order to trace the local perception of the pharaonic power. A suitable glyptic group are items belonging to the early Iron Age mass-produced series, which was first noticed and described by Pitry and then later by Monte, both excavators, one after the other, at ancient Tanis in the Eastern Delta. Only much later, however, André Wiese and Ottmar Kehl realized the religio-historical potential of the group and paved way for its further study. The amulets in question occur in various shapes and forms, such as coarsely worked scarabs, the row on the left, human head, lion, or ibex scaraboids, and round and rectangular pieces with domed top. The base engravings are executed in a bold and hollowed-out style. In relative terms, the scarabs and stamp seal amulets in question do have a clear terminus antiquem non, which is the late Iron Age 1B, with its typical ceramic assemblage like Telkasile 10, Megiddo 6-8, Telkinrod 5, with characteristic imports such as Cypriot white painted one, wheel-made Bucaro, or early Phoenician bichromeware. 4C datings of reliable fine context for the mass-produced series positioned group's first appearance at the beginning of the 10th century BC, or somewhat later. The earliest hitherto known 14C date comes from Locus 1721 at Telkinrod, the site which I'm excavating, which proved to be extremely rich in pottery and other finds, including a scarab belonging to the mass-produced series. The calibrated range for this archaeologically safe locus is around 1050 to 930, with a probability of 1 sigma. The iconographic repertoire is rather poor of these seals. It is highly standardized, and this indicates also some sort of mass production. It includes the name of Amun, represented by hieroglyphs, by the hieroglyphs in Re or Imen, or in cryptographic writing, the first two examples. Other gods are the originally Asiatic deities Baal Zet and Reshef, either alone or paired, the falcon-headed Egyptian god Horus, and finally a lord of crocodiles holding crocodiles with his arms. Goddesses are absent. The royal sphere embodies the hieroglyphic sequence Menkhep Re, the throne name of Tutmosis III, which should be viewed as a cipher or code for the pharaoh per se, time and again repeated on posthumously produced stamp seal amulets. In addition, the pharaoh is represented sitting on his throne, accompanied by an adorant, or kneeling on a branch. Other motifs, like chasing lions, simple or more complex hunting scenes with an archer, or apes flanking a pillar, a typical Egyptian motif, occur as well as other minor motifs too. All motifs represented on the mass-produced series reveal a strong dependency from the Ramesside iconographic pool. However, the single motifs are very debased copies from their originals of the 19th and 20th dynasty. A closer look at the pharaonic motifs reveals, for example, that the figure representing the king lost almost all of his royal attributes, such as the crown or the uraeus on the forefront. Only the crook and flail remain. Similarly, the royal hunting scenery is not recognizable as such anymore. The king's chariot is now no more than half a wheel. The figure standing on it is deprived from all its majestic emblems. In addition, classic Ramesside motifs are occasionally combined in that way that they lose their primary meaning completely. The line above a lying human figure originally goes back to the pharaoh in the guise of a lion who is trampling on his foe. On the other hand, the standing archer initially stood for the king hunting wild and dangerous animals. Combined with the lion, he is now actually aiming with arch and bow at himself. One should note, however, that such confusions are not restricted to items found outside Egypt. They similarly occur in the Delta too. On this background, scholars have assumed that the mass-produced series has been crafted outside Egypt, possibly in southern Palestine. In fact, most of the published seals belonging to this group come from Cis and Transjordan, where over 200 items are properly published. Nevertheless, a closer look at the much lesser documented Egyptian record shows that these items are fairly widespread in the Eastern Delta. In addition, the still unpublished material from the French excavations at San el Hagar, ancient Tanis, conducted by Montet over many years, contains more than 70 items belonging to this series. This is by far the largest number of such seals ever found at the site. For this and other reasons, I thus advocated for an Egyptian origin of the group. Nevertheless, it is undoubted that the mass-produced series reflect a certain acceptance in the sense of passive reception of Egyptian symbol sets at the dawn of the first millennium BC. As such, a certain customer behavior is observable, since this type of amulets is also found in significant numbers in Egypt. The idea suggests itself to compare which motifs were chosen by the customers both in Egypt and in Cis and Transjordan. You see the diagram on the screen. Although the general picture does not differ much on either side, it's basically very balanced except for the combination of the gods, a minimal reservation towards pharaonic symbols in the southern Levant is palpable, but it's very slight. Unfortunately, we cannot differentiate more the situation in the southern Levant, since for such view, the resolution is simply too low. So we cannot judge or see how the symbols are differentiated, whether inland or coastal southern Levant. In sum, at the dawn of the first millennium BC, Egyptian, let's say, Tanite stamp seals come into the local market, and it showed that the Southern Levantine seal owners followed a very similar pattern like the Egyptian counterparts. However, the reason for this behavior may be found in the non-obtrusive and quasi-un-Egyptian nature of the symbol system displayed on the amulet's basis. Glyptologists like Daphna Bentor, Bauch Brandl, Neil Alkin, Vanessa Beschloss, and of course Ottmar Kehl added in recent years much to the knowledge of, about local seal production in the Levant by isolating specific scarab and stamp seal groups within the material culture of the Bronze Ages that were undoubtedly locally produced. As for the Iron Age, much secured information is not yet available. One exception could be a small group of typical scarabs with a characteristic geometric engraving style, which Ottmar Kehl dubbed the rectangular stylized enthroned figure group. Similar to the above-mentioned mass-produced items, the dependency on Ramesside prototypes is striking. Nonetheless, the iconography is idiosyncratically reduced and modified. For example, the ureas, which should be at the forefront of the pharaoh, is coming out of his mouth. Very strange. Or the winged sun disk above the head of the pharaoh becomes more and more just a horizontal line. Unfortunately, this group is not sufficiently contextualized in the material culture. We know many items from the market, but that's not enough. Since there are only 5 archaeologically documented items from modern Israel, to those items, one each comes from Tel Yehudi in Egypt, one from Tel Tainat in southeastern Turkey, and another one from Al-Atus in Cyprus. So we have actually 8 archaeologically documented items. That's not enough to establish place of production, of course. A more promising group to the quest of Egyptian traditions echoed by the local seal production are the so-called Iron Age bone seals. Once more, it was the Fribourg school who was the first to point to the peculiarities of this distinct, locally made group. The seals, actually bone scaraboids, are made in a oblong and squarish, are made with an oblong and squarish contour with round corners. They are relatively flat and have a slightly convex back. The schematic engraving style is typical and easily recognizable. Flat, hollowed out, and hatched elements are combined with linearly engraved motifs. The pictorial scenery on the plinth is always bordered by an enframing line. Gill and Dühlinger view these seals as a provincial replication of the Egyptian royal iconography, which means it's an active reception of Egyptian iconyms. This is first and foremost reflected by several iconyms where the cartouche is the central motive, be it the double cartouche or the saluting worshipper in front of one or even two cartouches, or the cartouche in combination with the Horus falcon. The winged sun disk can also be combined with the cartouche or the striding ibex or oryx. The combination of the saluting worshipper is actually a Ramesside motif. However, the Palestinian copies made of bone never feature a cartouche with the name, which is always displayed or almost always displayed on these items here, which is Ramses II. If readable at all, they are displaying an UNRWA type formula, some sort of abracadabra, or other other sequences which are very difficult to read. Gill and Dühlinger suggest, in some cases, to read the pseudo-hieroglyphic sequence as 2-sha, which is the stylized lotus pole, N for ripple of water, rendered as a simple dash, and K, the sandy hill slope. If this reading would be correct, the sequence would result in Sheshonq, who ruled, I told it already, during the third quarter of the 10th century BC. The reading, which Kehl recently generalized for the whole group, is not beyond any doubt, since it basically depends on the decipherment of an item found from Tel Dan only, which is not free of difficulties on its own. Kehl's additional argument that double cartouches are typical for the Glyptic of the time of Sheshonq is not that strong, since there are other third intermediate period and earlier scarabs that feature a double cartouche as well. The Horus falcon, with spread wings and claws, is also attributed to Egyptian royal imagery and represented, for example, within the Ramesside Glyptic repertoire. However, there are also local forerunners to this motif. The same holds true for the winged sun disk, the second to the right, in the right-hand side column, and we saw already the lion above the man stretched on the floor. Only the ibex, oryx, or billy goat seems to be part of the local symbol system, which does not occur in Egyptian iconography, Ramesside iconography, in such a prominent position. There it is usually the prey animal. The distribution of the Judean stamp seals is clear. Most of the items were found in the south, in the region of Jerusalem. According to Ottmar Kehl, the production of bone seals of our type started in the late 10th century in the Jerusalem area as a, and now I quote a German, or not quote, I synthesize a German paragraph. He says it's a loyal and grateful reaction to Sheshong's exemption of the city during his march through Palestine. To link the bone seal production, however, with Sheshong's campaign is chronologically difficult to accept. As Baruch Brandl already noted some years ago, these seals are a phenomenon of the 9th and 8th century, and not prior to the Iron Age 2-8 late horizon. So this means we have far too large gap. In sum, the Iron Age 2 bone seal, the Iron Age 2 bone stamp seals that were uniquely found in Cisjordan shed light on the local reception of a minimal iconic set that was constantly reproduced, sometimes from the 9th towards the end of the 8th century BC. Although we cannot link the production with a certain name. Was this for me? Yes. Finish. Okay. This positive attitude towards the Egyptian royal system, in a way, may have its background on the weakness also of Egypt in the 9th and 8th century, and the troubles the Israelites and Judahites had more with Neo-Assyria than with Egypt. On this background, it is one can only say that Israel and Judah barely amalgamate or take up positively royal imagery in the early centuries of the first millennium BC. Thanks a lot. It's 24 minutes.
Are there any questions? We have a little time for questions.
The amulet.
Question was, what were the amulets used for?
Yeah, for apotropaic reasons or for magic, as we use amulets nowadays.
And do the different kinds have different purposes, or are they generic purposes?
They have a generic purpose. There exist amulets which have a very specific purpose, but I would count those seals towards that.
Any other questions or remarks?
Another basic question. How do you know that Judahites and Israelites are using them?
Because the items were found in Judah, let's say, within the area. So it's in the geographic entity of Cis and Transjordan.
Any other questions? In that case, I want to thank all our speakers of this afternoon session, and I want to invite all our participants for tea, and we'll be back here at 4 o'clock.
I see you.